welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the CFL DFS video / live stream for week number 11. So in this video today, I will be going through my sheet, which has the prices of all the players. It has the players' names, all that stuff. We're going over all the relevant ones. And then I talk about whether or not I would play them in like GPPs, large fields, stuff like that, cash games, or kind of a pay down option, dart throw type of play in general. It should be pretty interesting today. Trying to get, short and sweet today, but a good amount of information there at the same time. Obviously, the sheet will be updated throughout the week since we're going to get more injuries on a lot of these teams, especially regarding that last game of the week. So definitely be sure on the lookout for that. Be sure you get signed up on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports for all those updates. If there's anything major though, I will leave it down in the comments below. But without further ado, we'll get through this. We'll go over DraftKings, talk a little bit about if I be overweight or underweight to guys, at least where I'm expecting their ownership to fall into, since we don't really have too good at ownership projections for CFL. So we're going to start off with the very first game, which is the Elks and the Tiger Cats. So we do assume that Trey Ford's getting the start once again. I do believe that was announced either way by Chris Jones, but $9,000 GPP option there. He does have that rushing upside, one of the better athletes at the quarterback position in the CFL. He had a pretty strong week in his first start of the season, so definitely would consider him. Once again, $9,000, pretty decent price tag for him. It's a decent matchup against Hamilton. Could be better, could be worse, so definitely do like him. And then Kevin Brown at running back, he had that long run to start the game last week, so for the touchdown. So if he can do that, if Trey Ford can open up some running lanes and everything else like him, the offense is gelling a little bit better like it was in the first half last week. Could be a better game for him. So a little bit of interest there. Not anybody that I'm going over the top on or anything else like that, though. Then kind of the news is this week that we saw Tanner Green, the fullback, practice full all week due to his hamstring injury. So I do apologize because I realized my mic was not plugged in at this point in time. So I'm just going to keep rolling with it at this point in time. But the news for the Elks was that Tanner Green, the fullback, practicing full all week. He should be back. And then Eugene Lewis, $2,500. Could be like a dart throw if you really want to go there this week. He practiced in full all week. He'd been dealing with a knee injury, but he should be back this week as well. I believe they already announced that he will be back, in fact. So definitely somebody to consider there. And then for like the other wide receivers, we saw Emmanuel Urquino come back last week, $2,500, kind of another dart throw there if you want to go there. Kyron Moore's kind of been the main wide receiver as of late for them at $4,400. We'll see if that role changes or not with Lewis back now. So kind of a GPP option, maybe a little bit more risky than in other weeks though. And then, not really too interested in Dylan Mitchell, although he's been doing a little bit better as of late. So would consider him, somebody that's kind of a fringe in play, but it's really interesting to see with all these wide receivers back at this point in time how I'll shake out. And then the Elks defense, I got them as kind of a pay down option this week going against the Tiger Cats. Taylor Powell making, I believe, what's his third career start at this point in time. So should be pretty interesting to see how that all plays out. And then we move down to the Tiger Cats. So they were on bye last week. I believe it's Taylor Powell still getting the start, unless Matthew Schlitz is back this week. They did sign Mike Glass after trading Antonio Pipkin away, so he's on the team now at this point in time. We saw Kyle Oxley kind of play a little bit of wide receiver last couple of weeks, so we'll see how that all situation shakes out over time. Not really too interested in Taylor Powell this week, even though it's a pretty good matchup against the Elks. If you really want to get super contrarian, you probably could go that direction. A little bit of rushing upside there, not too crazy though. If he throws the ball a lot, could have some upside though. And then James Butler at $9,800. So as we get talking down with the wide receivers, we're going to see that Terry Godwin's is listed as doubtful due to illness this week. So there could be more room and opportunities for James Butler out of the backfield, especially in the receiving department. So I think he's a pretty interesting play this week. Tyreek McAllister, $3,000 dart throw if you really want to go that direction. He's a very explosive athlete, but not really getting too much run at this point in time. At the wide receiver position, somebody's going to have to step up this week because I still believe Tyler Ternesky is on the 6-game IR. And then Terry Godwin is listed as doubtful with illness. They probably have somebody on the practice squad they're calling up, but don't expect them to play a major role. So we should see somebody step up, whether it's Tim White, Keandre Smith, or Richie Senendini, or maybe it's Kyle Oxley this week. But Duke Williams is the one guy that I kind of trust in this wide receiver room to play as kind of a GPP option this week. Not too crazy at $7,600, though. If you want to take a stab at Tim White this week with Godwin being down, could make some sense, though. So we're going to keep moving down. So Montreal big thing we just have to monitor this week is if Cody Fajardo is playing or not. It looked like he was going to play last week. I expected it. And then Caleb Evans got the start, and he was okay for DFS purposes, but only threw the ball 13 times. So we'll see who ends up starting this week. Monitor the injury report. This is the third game of the week, so my list is a little bit out of order, so we only have 1 day of practice reports. Cody was limited on Tuesday due to left shoulder injury. We'll just monitor his status throughout the week. If he ultimately ends up playing, he'll be a GPP option. If he doesn't end up playing, you could throw Caleb Evans out in some like contrarian lines. But we did see William Stanback return to practice in full on Tuesday due to his hip injury. We'll monitor that status throughout the week. Obviously, if he plays, he'll be somebody that we're interested in. If he doesn't play, Walter Fletcher did pretty well in his place, and even Jayshawn Antwi did all right as well. So those could be viable options as pay down options. If he does not go, then we got the fullbacks, which we're not too worried about. At wide receiver, we still got Austin Mackey's $11,000. Expensive GPP option. Really pays off most of the time, but still pretty expensive at this point in time. Then, like their other wide receivers, not like too much there. I'll get a little bit of Tyler Snead. If you want to take a shot on somebody else, go right ahead. We did see Courtney Davis active last week and didn't really play too much of a role, though. So Julian Grant's still on IR at this point in time. And then that Alouettes defense, I consider them a GPP option against the Red Blacks if they can kind of contain Dustin Crum, especially in his rushing ability, although he did have a pretty good passing game last week. Could be pretty interesting. Montreal's defense has played pretty well so far this season. And then on the opposite side, if you think Dustin Crum's going to go off, he has that rushing outside. He's still a very viable GPP option. So when it comes to a cash game for quarterback, it's probably ultimately going to come down to like Trey Ford and probably Vernon Adams this week. We'll just have to see. But that's probably where I would be leaning at this point in time in terms of cash. But I think Crum's, probably third or fourth in line there. Excuse me. Felt that coming up a little bit there. And then for the wide receivers, I'm not like super interested in the Red Blacks wide receivers this week. Justin Hardy has kind of been the steady guy since Crum's taken over, so consider him a GPP option. Ackland did have the big week in his birthday week last week. CJ Lewis limited on Tuesday due to his Achilles, so he's trending towards coming back at this point in time. Shaq Evans, we saw him get some targets since he's been back, but nothing too crazy. Not anybody that really stands out of this group besides Justin Hardy, really, though. Probably not getting to the Red Blacks defense this week, unless it is Caleb Evans starting. Then maybe we'll get there, but they'd be just kind of a dart throw option at that point in time. For the Blue Bombers, we saw Zach Collaros go down last week. He didn't practice Monday or Tuesday due to his back injury. We'll see what his status ultimately is, but if he's not playing, then Drew Brown could be considered a viable GPP option. They might run the ball a little bit more, although that was not the case the last game, but they were playing from behind for a good portion of that game too. So Brady Oliveira could be interesting in GPPs at $9,900. Keep moving down, Rasheed Bailey at wide receiver. Nice game last week, $4,600, maybe a pay down option there. Nick Dominski's been really solid as of late, so GPP option there. Dalton Shane's been decent as of late, but with this price tag makes him a little bit more of a contrarian option overall. And then Drew Wolters-Iski was practicing in full on Monday and Tuesday due to his head injury, so he should be good to go, but didn't really play too big a role last week. And then Kenny Lawler, not the greatest week for him last week, but still a very viable option at $10,700. Blue Bombers defense going against Calgary. I like them quite a bit. GPP option, maybe even a cash game option, the way Jake Mayer's been playing as of late. And speaking of Jake Mayer, no real interest in him this week at $9,700. He'll have a big game here and there every once in a while. Running back situation, we got Kadeem Carey and Dedrick Mills both back this week, $7,600 and $8,500. We saw them split pretty good and well last week, so not really too interested in either one. If you really want to take a shot on one of them, go ahead and do it, but that's kind of where I'm at. Reggie Beagleton, Trey Dukes Odom, kind of GPP options at wide receiver. We saw a little bit more banged up wide receiver room once again. Clark Barnes didn't practice Tuesday due to a knee injury. Cole Tucker limited on Tuesday due to a foot injury. He's missed a couple games now. So if you want to take some shots on somebody else like a Mark and Michelle, Tommy Lee Lewis had the big game 2 weeks ago and then just punt return mainly last week. So really difficult to know how this situation is going to turn out with them. Beagleton's kind of like the safest guy. And then Odom's Duke's been pretty solid regardless as well. And then their defense going against the Blue Bombers, like you could make a case that they're a contrarian play if Drew Brown is the starting quarterback, but not really too interested in Calgary's defense at this point in time. Then we move down to the Rough Riders. So Mason Fine got hurt last week. Jake Delgado came in after him. They traded for Antonio Pipkin. Shea Patterson didn't end up playing last week because he was banged up too as well. So really interesting situation at quarterback there, monitoring the injury status on Mason Fine. Not sure if we have a solidified update on him yet, but really sketchy there. Don't really want to go with any of these guys this week overall. Jamal Morrow, maybe they run a little bit more this week, so $8,700 does make a little bit of sense for him in GPPs. Sean Bain Jr., I think, is viable in GPPs. Jarrett Stern's been really solid as a paydown option at $3,400 back-to-back weeks. For this, he's even a viable cash game play. And then Tevin Jones kind of as a GPP option. A little bit scary this week when we don't know who the wide receiver or who the quarterback is going to be for these wide receivers, Not really too interested in their defense going against BC since BC has been pretty steady on offense all season. And then we get down to BC and we got Vernon Adams Jr. here, $11,400. So it's a big price tag, but I still think he's a viable GPP option, even a potential cash game option if he's able to run a little bit this week. But, he's been putting up big numbers here and there. So it is very solid for him. Tyquan Mazzell at running back has been getting the bulk load of the workload, if not all the workload since he's been back at $8,800. Very viable there, even a potential cash game option as well. And then for the wide receivers, Keon Hatcher's been solid as of late since he's been back. $10,300 would be my favorite of their 4 or 5 wide receivers that they got since they got so many, it seems like. But, Whitehead had a good week last week. Alexander Hollins kind of stepped up in Dominique Rhymes' place. So if Rhymes is out once again, I think Hollins would be my second favorite. And then if Rhymes plays, kind of all bets are off. Just kind of take your shot on the player that you do like the most. And then that Lions defense going against the Rough Riders, their GPP option, maybe even a cash game option this week at $4,700 since it is a pretty good defense. And, the Rough Riders kind of struggling at this point in time. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of my cheat sheet. Like I said, I will update injuries more as the week moves along. Hopefully, I do apologize once again that the mic was not plugged in. So hopefully the audio is okay at this point in time. We'll go over to DraftKings real quick and just kind of talk about where I would be at in terms of players, who are the guys I'm going to be playing at each position, whether or not I'll be a little bit overweight or underweight to them on the field, and kind of potential stacks when we're talking about quarterbacks as well. So Vernon Adams Jr., I think he's a viable cash game play. It's him and Trey Ford that are going to be the cash game plays for me this week. Both guys that have solid rushing upside. And, if I'm playing Vernon Adams Jr., I like a lot of Hatcher, but I'm also going to be mixing and matching some other guys in there as well. Zach Collaros, if he plays, might want to temper expectations a little bit more this week, so probably just going to avoid him. But if he doesn't play, I'll have some exposure to Drew Brown. Have a little bit of exposure to Dustin Crum, maybe underweight to the field this week. Cody Fajardo, if he plays, probably ultimately be overweight to the field on him. Now, no Jake Meyer for myself this week. Drew Brown, like I said, if he ends up starting, probably be overweight to the field on him, underweight to the field, or 0 of Taylor Powell this week. And then, it really just depends on the rest of the situation. So mainly this week, I'm getting Vernon Adams Jr. I'm getting Drew Brown if he ends up starting, getting a little bit of Cody Fajardo if he ends up starting, and a lot of Trey Ford. So it's probably going to be a lot of Trey Ford this week, honestly, and Vernon Adams. So pretty simple there. If I'm playing, since I'm going back to it too, if I'm playing Dustin Crum, I'll play a little bit of Hardy with him. Not really too interested in the other guys. Drew Brown, play, Nick Nabinski aside him, and maybe a little bit of Bailey, maybe a little bit of Dalton Shane, kind of mix and match some of those other guys in there as well. And then Trey Ford, if I'm playing him, I'll play some Kyron Moore. I might take a shot on Lewis. I might take a shot on Emmanuel Arcano as well. Running back, Brady Oliveira, I'll probably be in line with the field this week. James Butler, I'll be overweight to the field on. Tyquan Mazzell, probably be in line or overweight to the field on this week. Jamal Morrow, probably ultimately in line with the field. Stanback, monitoring his status this week, probably be in line or slightly underweight to the field. Not really getting to Dedrick Mills or Kadeem Carey this week. Get a little bit of Kevin Brown here and there. Maybe a little bit of Tyreek McAllister, which apparently I had his salary written down wrong because it says 7,000 here. I think I had it as a lot lower. So probably not getting to him at this point in time. Then we're going to keep moving down. Nothing too much else here. I mean, ultimately, if William Stanback's able to go, we'll get some alter for me as well. So we'll get over to wide receivers real quick, and then we'll get to defenses, and then we'll get out of here, trying to keep this video short and sweet as possible. Dalton Shane, probably underweight to the field. Nick Dominski, probably overweight to the field. Austin Mack in line with the field. Dominique Ryan is probably not getting to either way this week. Kenny Lawler Jr. in line or slightly overweight to the field. Hatcher probably in line or slightly overweight to the field. Tevin Jones, it's a tough one for me this week because I don't know about the quarterback situation, so I'll probably be in line with the field. Beggleton probably be in line or slightly overweight to the field. Bain, I'll probably be underweight to the field this week. Tim White, maybe a couple shares here and there, but nothing too crazy. Justin Hardy probably in line with the field. Alexander Hollins, if Rhymes misses, I'll probably be overweight to the field since that's been the time that he's kind of shined this year is when somebody else has been out. Lucky Whitehead, maybe just mixing and matching some with Vernon Adams Jr. here and there. Duke Williams, I'll be overweight to the field on this week because I think he's going to have a solid role. Trey Odoms, Duke, probably overweight to the field. Tyler Snead, maybe a little bit overweight to the field. I'm not really getting to Emulus, not getting really getting to Dylan Mitchell or Dunbar once again. Mark and Michelle, like there's some upside there, but I'm probably not getting there this week. They do have Terry Godwin listed as out now at this point in time, it looks like. Not really getting to Jake Winicky, Nate Pahar, maybe a little bit of Rasheed Bailey here and there. Kyron Moore, some of my trade forwards stocks once again. Not really too interested in much else here besides like Jared Stearns down here. Going to be overweight to the field on him. Think he's a solid cash game play since he's been doing really well as of late. Looks like, let's see this Anthony Johnson news. Is he going to be back this week? Will be part of the Tiger Cats starting lineup. So he could be an interesting punt play, but obviously he has not played all season. We'll see what type of role he plays with Godwin being out and everybody else, but we'll see what that looks like. Maybe a punt play potentially there. Not too much else down here at this point in time. Not too much else to say, honestly. Defense-wise, Winnipeg versus Calgary, I'll have a decent amount of. BC versus Saskatchewan, we're going to have a decent amount of as well. Probably be overweight to the field on both those. Inline or overweight to the field on Montreal. Tiger Cats, probably be underweight to this week. Rough Riders will be probably playing none of. Red Blacks, maybe a little bit here and there. Maybe it depends on if Cody Fajardo starts or not. And then the Elks will be the other team that I'm playing, not really playing the Stampeders. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of CFL DFS for week number 11. Hopefully you guys all found this video pretty informative, pretty insightful. Once again, we'll be updating the sheet as the week moves along. Once again, do apologize for the audio. Hopefully it's still coming through and sounds all right. And hopefully you can understand everything I'm saying. And do apologize for that. But with that being said, that's pretty much all that I do have for CFL DFS for week number 11. If you guys have any specific questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible, or message me on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport and be more than happy to answer your questions over there as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. If you're brand new, checking my video out for the very first time, first of all, definitely do appreciate it. Second of all, would ask that you do subscribe to the channel, help support the work that we put out here, and helps build the community for Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's mainly focused on DFS. Right now it is Monday through Friday, MLB DFS over on the FanDuel side. And then we got CFL DFS videos going up once a week on the DraftKings side. NFL is right around the corner, so we'll be doing some content for NFL DFS as well in the near future. But with that being said, that's all that I have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you watching this video, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter what day you're watching this. Some pretty good luck in CFL DFS this weekend, and have a pretty solid weekend overall altogether. But that's all I got. So